Alright, welcome to another video, and before we get started, I'd like to take a quick minute to thank all the Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members whose names you see scrolling across the screen right now. They make this financially possible, and without you, I probably wouldn't be here making videos, so thank you. Alright, so we're flying the Swordfish once again. As you can see, we're flying now with ArduPilot. This is the second flight since I switched over from iNav. The previous flight, I just kind of flew around, did some auto-tuning, and got some numbers for TECS tuning. And you see I've actually been in the air for about 5 minutes now. On this particular flight, I just verified some of the things that I had set up after the initial flight are all working properly, which they seem to be. So we're going to go on and just kind of cruise around a little bit. And you might notice when I was looking around with the pan servo there, I took all the decals off. I left the ones over here, the Atom RC and the Swordfish. All of the other ones with the red and black stripes on the wings and tail, I removed those because on the previous flight, I actually had one of them coming off of the tail. During the flight, I noticed it, and it stuck around though. It made it all the way back to the landing, but it tried to come off. And I noticed before that when I put the decals on, I noticed they didn't stick all that well. And I actually cleaned up all the foam surfaces that I was mounting decals to. I cleaned all those up with rubbing alcohol. And I even went over the decals with a sealing iron just to try to get them to stick down a little bit better, which they did okay, or so I thought, but they did eventually start working themselves loose. So I just went ahead and peeled them off. I kind of like the all-white look anyway. Like I said, I left the branding, the Atom RC and the Swordfish name back there on the tail. I left those. Everything else is all just plain white, and I kind of like the look. So, as far as ArduPlane, like I said, I went through and I set everything up. I did download the parameter file from Atom RC, and I kind of had a quick look through it, and there was a few things I didn't like. One of the first things I noticed, they had all the safety arming checks disabled, which is never really a good idea unless you have a good reason, like you tested something on the bench and you don't have a GPS lock or whatever, and you just want to be able to arm indoors on the workbench and you know what you're doing. That's what the option is there for. That's why you have the ability to disable those safety checks. But it should never be done in what I refer to as a production environment, you know, something that you intend to fly, and especially not to hand out to your customers. So, I mean, that's just my opinion. And so seeing that and a couple of other things in the setup that I thought I could do better, I just decided to go ahead and start from scratch and set it up and tuned everything, and here we are. And so far, everything seems to be flying well enough. It's not 100% right. As you can see right now, it's estimating about a 12-mile-an-hour headwind, which I didn't think the wind was blowing that much. It's definitely not down on the ground. And it is kind of, you notice it's kind of wallowing a little bit in cruise mode, kind of holding its heading. But for the most part, all the pitch oscillation and all that was present with the iNav tune is gone. This is more of a kind of, it's hunting on its heading. It's kind of wandering around a little bit. And I do still think I can tune this out later. But for now, I'm pretty happy with it. Got a bird down there. Kind of see where he's going. He's probably going to loop around behind us like they typically do. And we'll leave him about his business, and we'll go on about ours. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it's flying right now. Like I said, it's not 100% perfect, but I do think it's good enough to share the parameter file that I have so far. So I will be posting a link to that below this video. Of course, you'll have to flash the flight controller with ArduPlane before you plug in the parameters. It's really not hard to do, and if you're flying ArduPlane, you probably know how to do all that anyway. So I won't spend too much time on that. As far as other changes, one thing, well, actually a couple of changes. I think I'd actually mentioned those in my previous video, what I wanted to do. But I've since I posted the last video, I've ordered the props on here, or the Gemfan 6042 flash propellers. Basically the same basic propellers. Instead of 7042 that come stock, they're 6042. But they're the same clear Gemfan flash, just an inch less in diameter. And that's what I tuned this with. And you'll probably want to run similar batteries in yours, or similar propellers anyway, because I found that the throttle was a little bit too touchy and it was way overpowered with the stock propellers with the 7-inch. And it's still plenty powerful enough with these. In fact, I have my throttle limited to 60% for navigation and 70% for takeoff, and that's still more than enough. At 60%, it's pulling about 10 amps, which is the most I want to do sustained with my batteries. And speaking of batteries, I do have a 21700, the Zod Max battery, which is the 21700 cells. They're rated at 5000, which is, I think, a little bit optimistic. Most 21700 cells are closer to like 4500. And on my last flight that I didn't post a video of while I was doing some auto tuning and things in Urdu plane, I actually made it a point to set up to let it loiter home at the end of the flight and run the battery out until I got down to a little bit below 3 volts per cell. And I got like 4600 milliamp hours, something like that, out of the battery. Actually, it was 4400 is what I got before I landed. And we got like 53 minutes of flight time. And like I said, that was doing some climbing and diving and high-speed runs and not really flying, just cruising around efficient. So I think that's a pretty good number. I think it should be easy to replicate that. But I do find these little propellers, the 6-inch propellers, seem to be at least as efficient, if not slightly more efficient than the 7-inch. And like I said, easier to tune because you have a little bit more resolution in your throttle. And it was just kind of wasting all the upper throttle range anyway with the 7-inch. So that's where we're at, and that's what we have. So I guess I'm just going to go ahead and lose a little bit of altitude and do some low-level flying out here. And try to make the video a little bit enjoyable. And I'm still in cruise mode, which is, we're kind of maneuvering around a little bit more than you typically would for cruise, but it's getting the job done. Flying well enough. Like I said, it is a little bit windy. The wind's kind of coming and going, but not terrible. So we scared up a whole flock of these white birds out here now. But we'll leave them alone. We won't try to chase them down because we can never catch them anyway. They just kind of avoid you. And they're a little bit more maneuverable and slower than we are, so they typically just loop around behind you, and if you try to circle back, they stay away from you. They don't like you to be behind them pretty much in the air. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of cruise out here and just gonna enjoy the plane, fly it around, and like I said, just make a hopefully enjoyable video. Make a pass over this little pond out here, and we'll gain a little bit of altitude, and we'll head out over the wooded areas. Go ahead and start climbing a little bit now. I actually want to go out to that open field that's out this way. So we're at like 150 feet or so now, which should be perfectly fine. And I still think I can lower my cruise throttle just a bit. We're sitting around between like 35 and 40% right now is where it kind of likes to sit the way we have it set up. And that's around 4.5 to 5 amps or so, which I think it can, well, I know it can fly at a little bit less than that. But I kind of want a little bit of safety margin in the tune if I'm going to share it. I'd rather it be a little bit too high than too low. Like I said, just to stay safe. So yeah, we're all the way out. We're like 2 miles out now at 140 something feet, and we're holding 25 megabits per second. So again, I'm really happy with the performance of these HGLRC hammer antennas that we have on this one. And like I said previously, I do still have another set of those. They're here waiting to go on to the Eagle. So when we get back to flying the Eagle some more, we'll put those on. So I'm going to gain a bit more altitude. I noticed we dropped down to 13 megabits per second there. Or actually in 7 now, 7 megabits. Getting into the single digits for just a second there. But I want to climb back up to around 300 or so. And we'll head out here some more. We're not going to go too far, but I just want to kind of go out maybe 2.5, 3 miles, something like that. You know, while we do have a little bit of headwind kind of coming from this direction. And I kind of want to find a level up here where the wind, even if it's a higher speed wind, I want to find an altitude up here where the wind is a little bit smoother, just to get a better feel for the tune. So like I said, I did change a few parameters after the first Arduplane flight. I changed a few things and I just wanted to see that it performs the way it should, which it does seem to be flying quite well. Especially as the wind is kind of feels a little bit gusty and it's varying a bit. And like I said, in the navigation mode, you can see it is still kind of hunting a little bit, maintaining its heading and altitude and things like that, as you would expect. But it seems fine to me. So I'm going to go ahead and gain a little bit more altitude. I want to get it to about 350 or so. Actually, we'll pull it up to about 375. We're just going to climb slowly up to about 375 and release the stick there and see if it'll hold 375. And we're actually 3 miles out now, still holding 25 megabits per second. And there's the river out there. And obviously it's getting a little bit late. The sun hasn't set yet. We still have plenty of time to cruise around a little bit out here, but we don't want to venture too far out and end up flying back home in the dark, or in the low light anyway, lower than I would like. Yeah, we'll make a little pass up the river here, fly up the riverbank a little bit, and then we're going to head back towards home. And maybe do a little bit of low altitude run on the way back. A nice view of the river. Sadly, there's no boats or anything. That water looks pretty glassy smooth out there, though. So we're holding 14 megabits per second now. Kind of curious how it's going to do once we turn, because home is out in that direction now. We don't have two antennas. One of them's, the antenna over here is kind of leaning away from home, and this one's leaning back towards home. Kind of curious how that's going to play out, affect things. And there's kind of a quick little drop in signal quality. And there it is again, single digits. And we're kind of bouncing around. Yeah, starting a little bit lower now. So just kind of keeping an eye on it. So now what I want to do is I want to turn back towards home and see if the quality goes back up or not. And yeah, we're kind of back up to 13 megabits per second now. So now we should make a little bit better time on the way home now, because we do have a tailwind. And I could do return to home and let it fly itself home, but I'm just going to leave it in cruise and kind of navigate myself. So everything's checking out really good with this little plane. And like I said, I do have a personal preference for ArduPilot, mostly because I like the technical challenge. It is a little bit more challenging to set up, but part of that is because it's so much more powerful. And I guess great power brings great responsibility, and you're kind of responsible for setting it up. So, yeah, I mean, that work does pay off. It does reward you with a nice fly-in and arguably more capable platform once you do take the time to configure it and tune it and set it up. But personally, I find it easier to do the more advanced tuning in ArduPilot. Probably just because I've done it and I've had help doing it and I learned how to do it. There's still some things as far as like tuning that pitch oscillation out in iNav that I would have to learn how to do. I haven't personally ever kind of learned and taught myself how to do it. But I know it can be done, but I prefer AutoPilot and the way it feels and flies. So let's go back to fly-by-wire for just a minute.
Fly-by-wire A.
And what I want to do is I want to start backing off the throttle just a bit. And see, let's hold about 30% throttle for just a bit and see. Yeah, we are slightly sinking a little bit. I just wanted to see how my board pitch level was tuned, if it was tuned properly or not. I'd actually tuned it for a cruise of about 37% throttle is what I was kind of aiming for, that range. So let me see if I run at that throttle. We do seem to be holding altitude a little bit better. We're still slowly sinking. I might be able to put about probably one more degree of pitch into it. Or actually slightly climbing now. See, I'm pretty happy with the way this tune feels, with the way it's all set up. So we're just going to kind of turn back into the wind for just a bit. I'm just curious if there's really as much wind as it's estimating, because we don't have an airspeed sensor. Like I said, I was going to set this one up so that once I do share my parameter file, it should work for the plug and play, or not the plug and play, or for the RTH model with the included flight controller, the way it comes set up in the box. That's how I set up AutoPilot to work, so that you can just plug it in. You don't have to move anything. There's a nice little formation of birds up there. I wish they weren't so high. We'd get up and chase them. Well, they're probably not that much. We're only like 320 feet. Let's get behind them and see how high they are. See if we can catch up with them. Not exactly sure what direction they were going, and they're kind of far enough away now. I can't spot them in the sunset. But we're just going to basically climb up here and run the throttle up. Actually, we're like 450 feet now. Maybe we shouldn't climb too much. This little plane does climb really fast. Faster than you'd kind of expect it to. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to get back down. I want to be below 400 anyway, just to play by the rules. I'm going to get back down and get back down to around 350 or so, just so that it'll be easier to spot those birds against the sky, rather than looking down, trying to see them against the horizon. And they're totally gone. I don't see them anymore. Just kind of looked around a little bit, make sure they didn't peel off in one direction or the other. But no, I don't see them anymore. I guess they kind of dipped out somewhere, or maybe they were going a lot faster than I thought they were. Could have been a lot higher and faster. So yeah, I guess we're gonna head back here and lose some altitude and cruise back towards home. But yeah, so getting back to what I was saying, I know the wind speed accurate or estimate isn't as accurate without an airspeed sensor as it is with one, but I wanted to keep it set up so that everyone can copy these parameters and it'll be ready to go if they want to do that. I may end up adding an airspeed sensor later because I do have another one. I have a digital one in the box and a pitot tube and the tubing to plummet and everything. And I'm pretty sure there's the I2C port is accessible on this flight controller too, which of course is the Atom RC F405 Navi that comes in the return to home model with the flight controller. But I should be able to set that up. I may do it later, I may not. I say that I'm just going to keep my plane simple and leave them alone, and I usually end up doing airspeed sensors. I find AutoPilot does benefit quite a bit from an airspeed sensor, especially if you are trying to make it a point to tune your airplane to be as efficient as it can be. You generally do have a little bit more precise control of your airspeed, so you can run it down a little bit closer to stall and have a little bit slower cruise, which is typically more efficient. You may not get where you're going as fast, but you'll burn less battery to do it. So if you're looking for duration and distance, that's usually the way to go. Of course, there's some models are outliers and they tend to prefer better from a faster setup. but I don't think this is going to be one of them. This one seems pretty happy floating along at a low amp draw. And I think that would be the way to tune it for efficiency. So we're going to go ahead and dive down, lose some power, or lose some altitude, and when he cuts some power, lose some altitude, and cruise along. I'm actually going to go back to cruise, just so that I don't have to manage my throttle as closely. Let the airplane do that for me. Throttle and altitude, of course, and also heading, because we have cruise, but I will be adjusting the heading along the way, obviously. I just want to get down and do a little bit of low altitude flying on the way back. So we've been flying for 26 minutes almost, and we've burned almost 2200 milliamp hours. So we should be right on target there to hit that 53 minutes. So it seems a pretty good number. Like I said, I think if you really tried and maybe set up a more efficient cruise, I think you could probably stretch it out to an hour. But to be honest, after about a half hour, I'm usually had enough anyway, ready to land. Now when I do these narrated flights where I'm kind of talking about things and showing some things, and like today we went out to the river and then we're going to cruise around. We're just kind of trying to pack a few extra things into the video, a little bit more so than I typically do on a flight where I'm not recording to post it. It's easier for me to stretch these out and drag them out a little bit longer, because it kind of keeps me preoccupied and on track throughout the video. But typically, if I'm just flying for the sake of flying by myself and not recording it, I'll usually have enough after about a half hour or so. And while we're flying out down here low, I want to talk about the shed here. On one of the previous flights, I actually intended to come and make a pass through the shed. I was thinking about it, and I noticed there's a catch pin set up here now. You can see it just north of the shed there. So that kind of hinders my ability to fly through there now. So I don't guess we'll be doing that anytime soon. You can see it's where I would usually approach to go through. There's a big catch pin basically built out of fence panels. That's going to be a problem for flying through there. So I guess we're not doing that anymore. But it's not a problem anyway. Like I said, we still can make some low passes down behind the shed. In fact, we might do one now, just to see how the video holds out. So what I want to do, I want to go back to fly-by-wire. And I want to come over here and get set up, and we'll line up on it. And the reason I'm going to fly-by-wire to do it is because if I need to make a quick attitude change, either in pitch or roll, or quickly climb out to avoid something, usually have a little bit quicker response in fly-by-wire than you do in cruise. So that's my preferred method of flying down low, something like this. So we'll get down and make a low pass as if we were going to go through the shed, but we're just going to pass on side of it. And you can see we're holding rock solid video, everything, no problems whatsoever. Might even come through the gate. And we'll pass out here and fly over the cows. Don't want to get too low and spook them, but we'll fly out here, scare up some birds to see the white birds taking off. I just have to be mindful of my throttle and altitude down here so that we don't fool around and get too slow and stalls. If you stall down this low, there's no recovering it. And doing these low altitude turns like this is probably the ideal situation to be in if you were looking to stall your airplane, which obviously we're not. And there's the birds behind us. And like I said, they will avoid you at all costs. I mean, there's no way you're going to catch them. So if we want to loop back around, there they are in a little flock. You can see they were kind of looping around getting behind us. So now we fly around where we're going to kind of intersect them. They'll immediately just peel off and fly behind us. You see they'll fly off of your wingtip and get behind you every time. And if we circle around, because we are faster than them, so we want to circle around and look for them. And if I had to guess, they're probably already setting up to get behind us. No, they're actually flying out this way. I guess they're leaving the pasture. But if we try to catch up with them, you'll see they immediately duck off and they kind of just get behind you. That's what they do. So once again, we'll try to get over here behind them, and you'll see they'll fly off a one wingtip and get behind us again. I don't know where they went, actually. Oh, there they are. They're up here. Maybe they're making a run for it now. But we are faster. We can catch them. You see we're catching up with them now. And once you get close... they're not peeling off this time. There they go. They split up this time. See, they're making it a point to be more evasive. They actually split into two crowds. There's one of them passed close to us. All right, we'll leave them alone. And get back to low-level flying. Just kind of cruising around out here. We'll make another pass over here by the shed. I don't guess it would be impossible to go through there, but you'd have a very narrow window to clear the top of that fence and get under the roof of the shed. So we're not going to do that. That's out of the question. So we'll make a run through the gate right down here, and we'll pass by the cows once again. And obviously there's going to be no birds out here because we've scared them all away. We'll make a run out here. I see a vehicle on the roadway. We'll make a pass out by them. Looks like they're moving pretty good, but we are catching up with them. Obviously don't want to fly too close to them. So yeah, we're doing about 40 miles an hour ground speed and we're barely gaining on them. But we are catching them, but like I said, they're coming up on that tree line right up there, so we're not going to be able to pass them. So we're going to peel off and go this way. And we'll make a low pass out by the shed this way. The big shed. And then we'll loop around it and see if that vehicle has turned the other way or if they're coming this way. Chances are most of the traffic out here usually just flies. It'll come this way like they've done. You see their headlights and that bridge across the bayou there. They'll probably make that right-hand turn and fly. Or I still saying fly, but they'll drive across the bayou there and hit the highway. It's where most of the traffic ends up going out here. What I'm curious about, though, the guy that owns all the cows and the shed and everything that we're flying around, he actually has a white pickup truck. And I'm kind of curious if that's him. But no, it's just someone else. They're going across the bridge as expected. Kind of thought it might be the guy that owns everything out here. I was going to make a low-level pass out there and kind of say hello. But it wasn't, so we won't. I noticed there's a little gap through the trees here, but I don't want to pass too close down here because that is the neighbor's house that we would be flying over. Actually caught a little gust of wind there coming over those trees. But yeah, I don't want to pass that close to the neighbor's house up there. I actually feel a lot of gusty wind right next to the tree line right there like it usually is, but it usually does that when the wind's rolling over from the north. But today the wind is coming more kind of northeastern this way. But you see, once you get away from that tree line out here, it's actually quite smooth. It's not rough like it is up by the trees, which is unusual. But yeah, hopefully the video doesn't end up too boring because I'm probably not going to edit any of this out. It's just going to be a video. What did I start, like 5 minutes in after I did a few preliminary checks once I got in the air. So we're going on like a half-hour video at this point. And we're not done yet. We're at like 2,800 milliamp hours out of 4,400. So we got like almost another 2,000 to go. We're probably not going to run the whole battery dead, obviously, because it'll be dark by then. The sun is set already. But I'm just pretty much having fun. I'm kind of at the point where I like the way the airplane flies. It's pretty solid. I mean, you can see how smooth and stable it is, especially later like this. And down low, it's kind of getting to where we have that calm air, that still air, and everything feels really good. I'm kind of wondering what the chances are I could come through the back of that shed. I usually like to fly through it north and south because it's a little bit lower on the back end of the shed, the way the pitch runs. But I don't think we'll be able to fly it through it from this direction either. But I do want to fly out here and just kind of take a look and see what that looks like, see how it feels on the approach. Because there is a fence on this side, right on this side of the shed, that you would have to clear. And there's also a post in the middle, which makes for a much smaller gap to aim for. You'd have to take either the left or the right path through the shed. And like I said, you have to clear that fence, which is a lot harder to see. And you can see that's the fence post right there. You'd have to clear that, go through the shed, and then pop up over the fence on this side as well. So you kind of have to like dip down through it and pop back up on the other side. So yeah, we're not going to do that. Because like I said, I don't want to have to go and retrieve my airplane out there. But obviously, I mean, it's clear to me that the airplane is capable of flying through it as far as the radio and video link. So there's no point to prove it anyway. It's just fun to do sometimes. But I still find it enjoyable just making a little pass down next to it and going through the gate on the other side. So we'll do that again. And there's actually a fence right here. Well, there's two fences that you have to go through. And then you can kind of get down low. You have a lot more room to set up your approach from this direction anyway. And then you miss the shed this way. Then we'll set up on the gate and we'll turn and go. We wasn't really low enough to call that through the gate that time, but we passed over the gate. And then we'll come back here and fly by the cows again. I wonder if we can fly between the cows. They don't seem to be spooked by the airplane. That's one good thing about these little quiet planes like this. The cows tend to not really care if you fly around them or not. Some of my louder planes, like the wings that have the loud props running on trailing edge of the wing, they'll kind of spook the cows when you make a low pass like this. And next time you pass, they're kind of all gathering up like they're scared of it. So I tend to avoid doing that. But like this little plane here, they don't even seem to acknowledge it. They just kind of whatever. And these two gates here are not exactly in line, and they're not open all the way. One of them isn't anyway, so I'm not going to try to fly through those. But we will circle back around and make another pass out by the cows. Push the nose down. Get rid of some altitude. Watch my throttle so I don't get too low. We'll set up next to the shed again. And we'll line up on the gate. We'll try to go low enough to go through it this time. Yeah, we'll call that through the gate. And now we'll pick a path. Let's go this way by the cows. Let's see, we'll pass over here. Hi, cow. Hi, other cow. Hi, all you cows. Can we cut through here without scaring them? Now, I'm really curious, did that spook them or not? Because we flew like right through them and I saw some of them looking at it. And you can see they're still looking like, what's this guy doing? Like they barely even acknowledge the airplane. And like I said, I think it's because they're familiar with all the white birds and this little plane is roughly the same size and all white and it's not loud. It's really quiet and they just don't seem to mind it. So we'll leave the cows alone and we'll head back home and call it a flight, I guess. Let's get back down. I want to fly along the back of this field. There's something along the back edge I noticed in one of my videos. Not sure what it is. There's a little thing. I don't know. It's a little wooden deal built out here. It's probably some kind of feeder or trap or something like that. One of the hunters put out here. And I'm actually not going to see it. Or there it is. It's right behind the wing right there. And there's actually two of them. There's another one behind the wing right there. But yeah, they're a little hard to see in the dark. But one day I'm going to fly over there and see what those are. Just curious. And I don't see any animal tracks in the field out here. This field right here, they're typically after the rains, everything's muddy like it is. Yeah, there was an animal trail right there. There's another one right here we're crossing. But typically after the rains, when the field is all soft and smooth graded like that, you'll see animal tracks where the animals come out of that wooded area and travel across towards the bayou. Well, they'll go drink out there. So we're flying away from where the sun set now, so we're actually able to see some of that better. We'll make one more pass down along this way. I don't want to get too low because it's a little harder to see the animal tracks, but I do want to see if we pass a little closer to the trees over this way. See if we can spot those things and maybe get a better look at them. Kind of watching for them off to this side here. There's a little white thing there. That's actually a fence post, and I need to watch my altitude. I'm getting kind of low there, so we're not in cruise mode. And my throttle was a bit low. And there's one off in the woods right there, and there's the other one right there. So yeah, I'm kind of curious what those things are. I hadn't really noticed those before. It kind of popped up recently. There's an animal trail through the mud there. And it's actually getting a little rough out here, a little turbulent. Not sure if that's wind blowing or what. But I guess we'll call it a flight now. We'll go ahead and fly home and land. But yeah, like I said, I will share my parameter file, and I'm gonna offer it to Adam RC. Actually, when I requested this plane, that was kind of what I offered them. If they sent me one, I would review it and post videos with it. And I would set up RTPlane and take the time to tune it because I believed I was able to do a better job than they did. And I think I have. I think it's safe and flies well enough to share it. But like I said, I will post a link to it myself. So it's available here. If you're watching this, you know it exists, and then there will be a link to it below this video. But if they do accept my offer and share the parameter file, then I guess you'll be able to find it on their website too at some point. But as of right now, just look for the link below the video. I'll put it on Google Drive or something like that. So you can see it's getting kind of rough over this way. I don't know why it's always rough by the tree line like that. But we'll go ahead and prepare for my landing. Start to bleed off some power and some speed. I'm not going to land short on this one. I actually want to kind of stretch this out and make a nice smooth landing. Let's flare it. Yeah, that'll work. I'll take it. And we didn't overshoot the shop too much anyway. But yeah, that's going to be the end of the flight. We're going to go ahead and disarm.
Disarmed.
And there's some max stats, whatever. Like I said, I'll share this parameter file. I will take out some things that are unique to my setup, like as far as my pen servo is something that I added. I'll take that out, and I'll take out my radio calibration. But I will leave the auto tune values, obviously. I'll take out my flight modes because you'll want to set those up according to your preferences. And I will make a note of what channels I have doing what in my radio so you can duplicate it in yours. But you'll need to calibrate all your radio inputs and everything as if you were doing a stock install and setup anyway. So anyway, hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully it's been enjoyable. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. So bye for now.